Hello there, my name is Caroline Stalker, and it is the 30th of March 2023. I've just been in today to our school to talk to some of the sixth formers about my career journey, and I just thought it would be fun to record a version of the presentation similar to what I gave to them this morning, just in case it's ever of use to anyone, or if there's anyone who wants to watch it who was not available this morning, just to hear a little bit about my journey through my career, what I've learned along the way, and anything that might resonate with you or be a useful tip or hint for your own journey, either now, someone you know, or in the future. So I'm going to try to share my screen. Okay, here we go. So if I just quickly pop this on, here we are. So a little bit about my career journey. So first thing to say is that success comes in all different shapes and sizes. You might think as you go through your life that you're going to see this beautiful, straightforward journey from A to B, in which you become more successful over time. And I want to just tell you that that isn't the case. You're going to have twists and turns. You're going to have things that go well, things that don't go so well, things that come from left field that you're not going to expect, that knock you off course potentially. And you just need to know that you're all still on that journey, learning, growing, developing, and that these are all going to make you the person that you are in the future and make you stronger, and help you to achieve things as you go through your life. So don't be surprised when these things happen. Okay, your journey might have some twists and turns. You might have in the future what's called a mosaic career. So this is something that increasingly we're expecting people to have. I mean, I think they're now just increasing the UK pension age to 68. So people are going to, over the next few years, that's going to happen. And so people need to work for a long time. And the majority of people now are not going to stay in one job, one employer for the entirety of that time. So we need to be flexible, we need to be dynamic, moving with the times. Obviously, the world is changing, technology is changing. And we need to always be looking to the future and thinking, what's the next thing? What am I going to be doing? And being open to opportunities that come along. So to give you a little bit of background to me, so I grew up in York, and I did, for my A levels, I did geography, physics, chemistry at A level and French at AS level in a sixth form college in York. And I originally thought I was going to do a chemistry degree, but then realised when doing my A levels that wasn't the right thing for me, so decided to go to do geography. Then I spent some time trying to decide which university to go to. And as you'll see, there's a theme running through this, that there will be moments in your life when you make a decision, or you take a job, or you follow your heart to do something, and that will by definition change the trajectory of the rest of your life. And that's not something to be frightened about. It's just something that is how it is. So I spent some time trying to decide whether to go to London, to UCL, to go to university, or to Durham. I wrote lists of pros and cons. London had a big list of cons and not very many pros, and Durham had a big list of pros and not many cons. But I knew in that moment that I needed to follow my heart. And sometimes you have to balance that head-heart relationship. So I followed my heart and went to London to go to university. I absolutely loved that. But when I finished my degree, I wanted to work in water management. That was my plan at the time. But the various relevant people were not recruiting, or there wasn't the right role. So I ended up taking a year out and temping through a recruitment agency. But that was invaluable because it actually gave me access to a whole lot of companies that I would never necessarily have been recruited into, and taught me a whole load of skills about how to operate in business, how to function, how to get the best out of my teams, all sorts of different things I learned in that year. So don't be frightened if that ever happens to you, because you can learn so much and benefit massively from those kinds of experiences. Just as a little aside, my brother finished a degree in physics and went to do some recruitment, temporary work through a recruitment agency. And that particular agency had a relationship with the consulting firm McKinsey's, where if good people came that they felt would be suitable, they would place them into a role in McKinsey's and then allow people to enter the company that way. My brother eventually took a great job with McKinsey's, worked for them for several years before moving on to Lehman Brothers, and then to a really senior role that he now has in Deutsche Bank. So that was an incredible stepping stone. And again, sometimes those sort of things can be the route into a company because they get to see you and meet you. So that's just a little aside. Then I joined Barclays on their graduate training scheme. that gave me the opportunity to spend a year in the branches learning relationship management skills with the clients, then a year in the business centre looking at how businesses lend to companies and what they're analysing and how companies that are performing well look and how companies that are not performing well look. And then in my third year, I, by pure, again, chance, ended up being placed into a change management, so project management team, which I absolutely loved. It totally played to my skills. I love being out there, talking to people, coordinating things, being able to deal with lots of different things at once. It might be I've got an HR work stream, a finance work stream, a technology work stream, a legal work stream. So I run those projects for probably the next 12 or 13 years after that, specializing in outsourcing and offshoring projects, which again made me also see how big corporates are actually now frequently restructuring, changing their business model, and that job security in a big corporate is not the way it used to be. I also, well, I'll talk a little bit about that job in a moment. I was also lucky enough to be able to take a career break while at that in that corporate role, and I went traveling for a year between my 30th and 31st birthday. So again, it's never too late. There's things crop up where there's opportunities, and take those grasp them with both hands if they come in your path. Then, having gone back to Barclays and in fact moved up to Barclaycard in Northampton because we moved out of London, because my husband, aged 34, decided 13 years of strategy and planning with the bank was not the right thing for him for the future. And he went back to university, as I say, in his mid-30s to retrain to be a doctor, which then was a 15-year training program to reach consultant over that next few years. So then I eventually left the bank when I had my own children, and I went into the world of self-employment. So this was quite scary because obviously when you're starting to start your own business, you don't really know how to start a business. You don't have the skills or the knowledge or the experience. So again, by pure kind of chance encounter, I was talking to a friend who owned her own business about conceptually what that was like. And then after a little bit of conversation, she asked if I would be interested in buying her business, which I duly did. So again, these opportunities arise, be ready to take them with both hands if that's the right thing for you when they come up. 9 years later, about 1,500 families that I talk. I absolutely love that. And again, I'll talk about that in a little bit about what's the pros and cons of that kind of business. And then from there, 6 years ago, I started my current business, which is a network marketing business, which I absolutely adore. It's in the health, beauty and wellbeing sphere. And I was lucky enough after a couple of years to have built that business sufficiently that I was able to sell my franchise business. And I'm now fully present in that new business. And I do have another 15 to 20 years to go in my work career. So, you never know what's going to be happening, how many more bubbles I'll have on this career a little path when we come to the end of my time working. So just then to continue. So just something here that I spoke to the students about was the importance of being okay with failure. Dog's now barking. Hope that's not too visible on the chat. So when you are perhaps at school, we're taught really in a way not to want to fail, that we have to be able to pass everything, we need to be being successful all the time. But actually, particularly when we're in business and in any part of our life, we must get to feel comfortable that it's okay sometimes to fail, because if we're trying new things, we're stretching ourselves, we're pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone, doing things that we've never done before, we will have times when that's successful and times when it is not successful. So we have to be okay with that situation. Okay. So again, just coming back, so 15 years I worked at Barclays Bank in London, in the city, in one of those big tall buildings, and I did love what I did. It was really exciting and so on, but there were sort of both pros and cons to that job. So the benefits of a corporate job are obviously, there is the opportunity for great pay if you work up through the levels, and really good benefits. So obviously a pension scheme, health insurance, car bonuses, those kind of things. There's a level of job security, albeit nowadays there is not the kind of job security that there would have been in years gone past. My job was, in fact, really interesting. I got to see some amazing projects. I got to progress through different areas and departments within the bank over the years. And there was always that career path. So you've got, for starters, you have a manager telling you what to do, asking you to do things by a certain date and being on your case if they are not done. And again, when we think about running our own business, that is a big challenge for people when they start their own business, is not having that boss there. Also, there is that structured career path where it's like, I'm at this level, I want to progress to the next level, I'm going to promote, maybe I'm going to do a training session, whatever it might be to get to that level. And you've obviously got an enormous structure around you with people there to train and coach you as you go up through the levels. The disadvantages of a corporate job are obviously that it can be very stressful, high pressure, demanding, have really long hours. So I used to leave the house at 7 or before 5 o'clock sometimes. And if I got back by 9, I thought I was on a short day, I'd done well. I used to commute. Well, by the time I moved to the last few years to Northampton, I used to commute, which was 65 miles each way on the motorway, driving, come rain, shine, whatever it may be. It was A, quite expensive, and B, I used to have to wear a mouth guard to stop me grinding my teeth away, and I'd wake up at night having work conversations and so on. So yeah, there was moments when it was quite stressful and had quite long hours. So also, obviously, there are nowadays risks of restructuring, job losses, and so on within a big corporate like that. And we do have limited control over our working hours, which is a big issue when we're working like that, in that we're no longer in control of our own life. Because the bank effectively owned me. It required me to go to work every single day, apart from my, whatever it was, 5 weeks holiday. And even with those, I had to fit those in around everybody else's holiday requirements. So my life was effectively going to work, and I occasionally saw my house. So, there's pros and cons, but and benefits, but advantages too. Hold on a moment. So what I shared with the students was that if you look on the left there, as an entrepreneur, you need to think about life differently to as an employee. So when you're an employee, you get your set wage. So every month, you know how much you're going to earn. So I'm just trying to quieten down my dog. So as an entrepreneur, you don't get that set wage every single month, and certainly not in the early days. So you have to understand that in the first few months, weeks, I mean, that little down there suggests that you're going to get paid more within a year, which is highly improbable, because in actual fact, that's much more likely that graph there would really be spread over maybe 5 years, even 10 years. So the majority of businesses don't break even for many months, and generally many years. So you have to have enough cash to be able to sustain your business when you're my dog's being so annoying. I hope it's not picking up too loudly on here. So we always say to people that as an entrepreneur, you have to be prepared to live a few years of your life like most people won't, so that you can spend the rest of your life like most people can't. And we talked a little bit with the students about what freedom means to them. So you can have financial freedom, so you can earn a lot of money that allows you to do the things that you want to do. Or you can have a lot of time, but not very much money. So you've got all the time that you want to do something, but no actual money to do it. And many people sit in one of those two buckets, where they're either not earning enough to do the things they want to do, but perhaps they would be able to time-wise, or they have got all the money, but barely any time to spend in their life doing that. So one of the things that owning your own business can do, not always, but can in time allow you to do, is to have a greater balance between that time freedom and the financial freedom. So the flexibility. It doesn't mean that you don't need to go to work, because when you're running your own business, you absolutely do. It's as hard work, if not harder, than being employed in a corporate role. But potentially you have a lot more flexibility, so you can choose the days that you want to go to work, the times you want to work. So I then eventually left Barclays after my 15 years and took the big step into self-employment. As I said earlier, I ended up speaking to a friend who I knew about the concept of owning my own business, and then ended up buying her existing business. I went from one extreme to the other of running these big corporate multi-million-pound projects to prancing about singing songs for babies and toddlers and their families to help them to have a better start in life, to be able to learn to communicate. And it did have an incredible impact on the families, and I absolutely loved it. I felt really passionate. And again, I said to the students that you need, if you're running your own business, you need to have something which is in your heart, that you've truly feel passionate about, that you know it's a thing you love, that you want to do, that you want to help people with, because you have to have that love, and that passion has to outweigh all the obstacles and challenges and problems that will come along the way of running your own business, the hard work, the graft, the things that people don't see in the darkness when no one's watching. But I absolutely love this business. I taught again about 1,500 families, which was amazing. For anyone who doesn't know what a franchise is and how it varies from a regular independent standalone business, if you were to set up your own business, and there had never been any classes, for example, in this particular instance, there'd never been any classes, there'd never been a format. I would have had to just dream up a format that I believed was going to work, have written all the paperwork around that, worked out how I was going to run the sessions, how was I going to market them, and then I would have had to start from scratch in that scenario. With no assistance, I probably would have had to set up websites and produce marketing material and so on. It's high risk doing that with an independent business, which is one of the reasons why so many businesses fail, because the person either it's not a good idea in the first place, or they just don't know how to bring that idea to life. So with a franchise, you've got a pre-existing proven business that has worked somewhere for somebody else. So with a franchise, in my case, the lady had been running her classes in another part of the UK, successfully running them. She developed a format. And so then she was then able to offer people the opportunity to run those same classes under her umbrella, under the name of her company. They were all self-employed, working for themselves, but they had to buy that opportunity to run that franchise. These, as an indication, are a range of people and companies that use franchising model to expand their business. So as you can see, many of the food outlets use this, but also the likes of Specsavers, Tony and Guy hairdressers, some nursing homes, cleaning companies, pool companies, children's classes, and even something so unusual as mobile axe throwing. Who knew that that was a franchise? And so the reason why companies use this model is because they want to expand their business, because they've got one, let's say they have one outlet initially, and they would have to buy or lease that next outlet and then put a manager in place, pay that manager and so on, in order to start to expand, so they've got more outlets for their business. By using the franchising model, my dog is so funny. See, by using the franchising model, they can expand their business by offering the opportunity for other people to buy those businesses. So the benefits of franchising like this is that it massively reduces the risk of starting your own business, because we know it's a proven model. It's already worked somewhere for somebody else. Sometimes those franchises, like let's say for McDonald's or Subway and Specsavers, Tony and Guy, there's a brand that's already known. And so that gives you a level of recognition. It gives you kudos. It gives you an ability to bring in customers who already know that brand from somewhere else. You get help from the franchisor with things like marketing, advertising, perhaps some of the technology arrangements. And you also potentially find it a lot easier to get finance. Why is my dog being so annoying? Here we go. You get potentially much easier opportunity to finance your business. So when I used to work for the bank, we used to have Tony and Guy hairdressers as one of our clients, and we would see these really ambitious business plans come in, and we would lend against this really ambitious business plan, because we knew time and time again that's what those franchises had actually been able to deliver, and we knew there was no risk. Plus the franchisor used to stand behind the loans, so that if there was a problem or whatever, we knew we could always go to them. It helps businesses to skip the startup stage. It gets them to be profitable much more quickly. Now, the disadvantages of a franchise model is that the disadvantage of the franchise model is that it's very restrictive on the business owner. So you have to run your business exactly the way that the franchise company tells you to, the franchisor. There are rules. There's a franchise agreement that usually has a period of time that you're mandated to run the business for, regardless whether you're enjoying it anymore, that kind of thing. There's a very high startup cost. Now, my franchise was cheap. at only around about £5,000. But many other of those larger, well-known franchises are very expensive. So I looked at recently, and there was a Subway franchise being sold over in Nottingham for just under £500,000. Things like McDonald's franchises, I believe, are in the region of £500,000 to £1 million to buy. So just think about what an enormous investment that is for someone taking on board a franchise, and you have to be absolutely confident that you're going to make this work. There's also then an ongoing franchise fee in most cases. So personally, I used to pay 15% of my revenue, so my actual takings, back to head office as part of the fee, the pleasure of being allowed to continue to run this business. And that's quite a big chunk, in fact probably nearer 30% of what would have been my profits, because I obviously had to take costs off before I actually made my profits. And reputation management just really talks about the fact that you're reliant as a franchisee on the caliber of the other franchises and the franchisor itself, because your business is entirely tied to that franchise. So there's pros and cons to franchises. You also tend to find that you're quite limited geographically in your franchise. So I only had 4 postcode areas that I could operate in. So the franchisor will tell you geographically where are you allowed to operate. So for me, that actually limited the extent to which I was able to grow my business, because I only had this quite small franchise area that I could operate in. Here we go. Is that right? Yeah. Sorry, just checking. Okay, so then 6 years ago, I was introduced to a new opportunity. So I was still fully running my franchise business at this stage. And I started up my current business as a side hustle to my original franchise business that I was working full-time in. And I went into another completely new area that I didn't really know prior to that point. So this was in the area of nutrition, health and well-being, which I've absolutely loved learning more about over the last 6 years. And it is an area that I do feel incredibly passionate about. But again, as I was talking about this morning, this is an area where when you're thinking about setting up a business, whether it's your own independent business or whether you choose a franchise or a network marketing model, you need to be looking at what are trending areas. So this area for us is trending because we know that the wellbeing area is a massive growth area. We also know, now the posts come, I never work with no animals. So we know that the wellbeing sector is a massive growth area. We are also an online business, which again, online shopping and so on is a massive growth area for us as well. So yeah, we know that this is a really good place to start a business in because it's a huge growth area. For me personally, it's something that I'm super passionate about because actually helping people with their health, with their nutrition is a hugely important part of life nowadays. And there are so many people who are struggling. So you can make a huge difference to someone's life by doing this. Equally, because I help coach and support other people, mentor them to start up their own businesses, this is a really great area for me to be able to really get into that coaching and mentoring, and super amazing to see people grow and develop. We also in this business have a great opportunity to support one another and be part of a community. When we start up our own business, that can often be quite lonely, because particularly if you're just at the start of your journey, you might be just a sole trader, and you're having to do absolutely everything in your business, and you might not have a community, or you might not have a team to be able to bounce ideas off, to be able to celebrate the successes and commiserate the bad times. So this is an amazing, because all these people you see in the pictures are all independent business owners, but we all coach, support, mentor one another, which is incredible. Okay, so again, these are just some more pictures from my journey here. Just gives an indication there down the bottom right of the kind of people who are in businesses like this, come from all sorts of background. You don't need to have a particular skill or training in a certain area to be successful. And then a little picture of some people who've been in my teams over the years. Okay, so this business is part of network marketing, or we might call it direct sales, affiliate marketing. There's a range of different names that people use for this kind of business. And effectively, this is just like bringing a product or service to market through individuals. And unlike traditional marketing, where we might pay vast amounts for advertising, celebrity endorsements, that kind of thing, it's basically just person-to-person conversations. But just like any other business, if you were a hairdresser and you set up your independent hairdresser and you wanted to grow that business, you would potentially employ people to open up other branches of your hairdressing salon, either on a franchise basis or as a direct employee. And our business is no different. So we have our own personal clients, but we can also grow our business by introducing or bringing new people into our business, but they happen to all work on a self-employed basis. So the pros of network marketing, this blew me away when I first saw this. And certainly as a business model, it's really important, I think, for people to understand how the corporate model works, how an independent business model works, how a franchise model works, and how a network marketing model works, because they all have pros and cons. Effectively, the network marketing model is very similar to a franchise model in many, many ways, in that there's a proven business model that's being run effectively by a head office or a franchisor. They provide like the structure, the framework around how you can build a successful business based on how people have done it previously. There's often a level of brand awareness because it's a name that people are aware of. The head office company will do a lot of the kind of work behind the scenes that perhaps as business owners we don't always want to have to do all of, or it's quite arduous to do. So things like designing your products, or arranging manufacturing activity, holding stock, which is obviously very expensive for businesses to do, and it's quite a lot of risk around that stock about whether you can sell that. Managing and setting up technology, which we know costs between thousands and millions to be able to run websites, take card payments, all that sort of thing, plus the ongoing maintenance, updating and so on of that technology. Arranging warehousing and distribution, things like legal support, all of those are performed by the central head office team, so that then it takes a lot of the onus off the business owner, because you're only having to focus on certain parts of the business. So from that perspective, a level of similarity around compared to a franchise, albeit I think that the head office company within a network marketing model generally would do more of those bits than a franchise, where you'd probably still take on a lot of those elements of the work. But there's no ongoing upfront franchise purchase, so the fee, there's no contract term, and there's no ongoing franchise fee to pay back. So it's a much lower risk in that there's effectively no startup cost, or very, very low startup cost with a marketing business, which is what actually makes it a really appealing option. So some of the disadvantages are, one, there is still a hangover from like 40, 50 years ago of some negative preconceptions that certain people have, but fortunately that is largely gone now, because people now understand that this is an incredible business model. The next 2 points really apply to any business, be it independent, a franchise business, or a network marketing business, is that the biggest risk, I think, is that we forget to go to work, because we don't have a boss when we're self-employed to tell us what to do, to tell us when to deliver our report by, to how many clients we need to see that week. It can be easy to allow life to take over and for us to fail to turn up to book enough meetings, to do enough work, and we get distracted by chatting with our friends, going to the gym, sorting out our children, whatever the other distractions are that we have in our life that we end up doing in preference to going to work. And that is where you have to be very disciplined if you're going to be successful in business, because you have to do that work, enough work every day, every week, every month, and it must be consistent. There's no point opening a restaurant or a cafe, opening for a few days, then closing for a week, then opening for a few more days, then closing for a week. People need to see you absolutely consistent day after day, after week, after week, after year, to be there and to be supporting your business. Failure to run the business successfully, again, in any of these models, is a real risk, because we know that a lot of people just simply are not good at running their business. They lack the relationship management skills that they need, they lack the discipline, they don't have the financial understanding of what's required. And so you have to be always growing and developing your skills, because you don't start necessarily with that information. So you need to be looking for trainings, investing in yourself, going to conferences, and that means you have to be paying out at a time when you're probably not making a lot of money in your business, and that is really important. And if you don't do that and you don't continue to grow and develop yourself, you will not be successful in that business, because you simply don't have the skills that you need. So this is something that, again, I spoke to the students a little bit about. And this is in general, just thinking about one's career and where we end up. The diagram on the left, the simple one with the 3 circles, is just a simplified version. And then on the right is a slightly more complex version, which is apparently a traditional, a Japanese model. around finding where you want to be in your life and how to make yourself happy with the different things that you do. So effectively, I said to them, we need to think that there are 3 things that are important in life when we're thinking about what we do for our jobs and so on. So there are certain things in your life that you might love and adore doing. That might be you love playing the flute, you love painting, you love running. You know, there are lots of things that we love in life. And then you can think, which are the things we're really good at? So we might be particularly good at organizing things. We might be particularly good at doing maths or whatever. And then you need to think, what are people happy to pay me for? And the things people are happy to pay me for may or may not be the things you love and the things you're really good at. But ideally, if we can find something to do in our life, which is in that sweet spot between something we love, something we're good at, and something we'll pay you a decent amount for, then that is the dream job. What you sometimes find is you get people who do a job they're good at, that they can get paid for, but it's not necessarily what they love. And what they love, they do as hobbies outside of work. And that is fine. As long as you're happy with that situation, that is fine. There might be times when we do something that we can get paid a certain amount for, that we're good at, and that might be a time when perhaps we don't get paid very much for something, but we love doing it, and it's maybe like a vocation or something where we don't necessarily get paid very much, but it's a good thing to do. So trying to look for something in that sweet spot. And on the right, as I say, there's a little bit more detail there about kind of different kinds of roles and how they might work. Some useful books and audios. I would say absolutely anything by Darren Hardy. He's an incredible writer and speaker. He's the author of Success Magazine in the US. He has interviewed and spoken to many, many thousands of successful entrepreneurs and people within the corporate world too. The Compound Effect is one of his incredible books, and I would really recommend absolutely everyone should read. This is just about how making small positive changes in your life can make a substantial difference in the long run, because they all compound up over time. And similarly, small negative things will also create a downward spiral in your life. So that is a great book, and I'd really recommend it. He also has a 1-hour audio called Making the Shift. I guess it's a book, but I've only ever listened to it on audio, which is an amazing book talking about the entrepreneur mindset. He does also actually have another book called The Entrepreneur Roller Coaster, which again, I would really recommend. It's incredible. If you go to his website, you can sign up to his Darren Daily, which is short 2 to 3 minute videos every day, just to inspire you and motivate you every day. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is another great book I would really recommend. Robert Kiyosaki is an incredible author and speaker about all things to do with being an entrepreneur. He was, as a child, he had his own father who was a teacher and was not particularly well off. And then he had the father of another friend of his who was an entrepreneur. And he talks in the book about kind of what he learned and how different business models are able to make one successful in business. If you ever have moments of suffering from doubt or low self-esteem, then You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero is an absolutely genius book. It's incredible. I particularly like it on Audible because then you can hear Jen herself talk through the book, and it's very powerful. And finally, The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins is a great book if you need to get up and go and to stop procrastinating. So in her book, she talks about just simply 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, do it. However frightening, unpleasant, whatever it is, the thing that you need to do, even if you don't want to do it, just give yourself that countdown and then pick up the phone, write the call, make the message, whatever it is, make the call so that you can just get on and move forward in whatever it is you want to do. So my final top tips were around the fact that obviously employers, even business owners nowadays, are looking for so much more than just A-levels and a degree. They want to see what else you've done. So make sure you're getting involved in as many things outside of school and college as you possibly can. Be ready to take opportunities. These appear in our life, and we need to be open and ready to spot them and to take advantage. We will find people at meetings we go to, at weddings, social events, networking events, wherever it is that we go. Sometimes we can be more proactive in looking for those opportunities, and other times they will literally just fall in our lap. And if we are open, looking, eyes open, ready to look for those opportunities and then act on them, then we will become lucky. So we know that luck is just about taking opportunities and running with them. We make our own luck in life. So obviously there are times when we appear to be unlucky, you know, if something goes wrong, but a lot of the time actually we can help to engineer our own good fortune by being available to take advantage of opportunities around us. Be flexible and go with the flow. We never know where life is going to take us, and sometimes it might go down a completely different route than when we believed we were going to go down, but sometimes that's the right route. So just follow your heart when you get to that point. Act with passion and enthusiasm, find things that you love to be part of, and then work is so much more fun because we have to go to work for many years of our life, and if we're doing something that we don't truly enjoy, then what's the point? Like, life's too short, we only live once. But also people will jump on board with you, they will come on board, and particularly if you're running your own business, but obviously even if you're in an employed job, people want to be around people who love what they do, who are enthusiastic, who are passionate, who have belief in what they're doing. And that is what will help those clients to come on board, and people to stay with you from the point of view of being employees or team members or partners in your business too. Keep your options open, so don't narrow your life too much, and then be open-minded and also be future focused. We know the world is changing so quickly at the moment. In the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, you know, jobs might look quite different, technology opportunities that are different in terms of the way things are done, and we need to be always looking to the future and thinking, is this job that I'm doing now still going to exist in the format that it is in now, or do I need to be doing some more training? Do I need to be looking for another business opportunity? How can my business grow and develop? And actually, if you look at some big businesses around the world, you know, Nokia started out as a sawmill and became a mobile phone company. I mean, yeah, there's some unusual stories like that. And then keep your belief in yourself and do your personal development to help you to stay confident, stay believing in yourself, keep growing. So 10 pages of a personal development book a day is absolutely incredible. 12 books a year minimum will give you a massive bonus. Listening to an audio book when you're walking the dog, when you're on the train, on the bus, is a great way to keep your mind stimulated, to keep it happy, positive, looking for opportunities, rather than just stagnating. And remember, the day you plant the seed is not the day you eat the fruit. Particularly in business, you need to understand that the work you do today might not come through for months, weeks, months, years potentially, but believe that if you do the work to nurture those seeds, that will eventually fruit and you will have an incredible outcome. But you have to not give up in the period when that seed is growing. Okay, and again, discipline is very important in business, and it is that choosing between what you want now and what you want the most. So if what you want the most is to grow your amazing business, then there are times when you have to make sacrifices, just as you do in the corporate world. There were plenty of occasions when I couldn't go out with my friends because I was busy writing a report that I had to get done for work, or I couldn't go to my children's assembly or their school trip because I was at work that day. And so there are times when in every business, every corporate scenario, and there are times when you might have to make trade-offs between what you want now and what you want in the future. And Henry Ford famously said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And that is so true, that if you have personal self-belief, then you can do anything. There is nothing that you cannot do if you work hard enough, you speak to the right people, you're consistent enough, you're tenacious enough, you do more training, you absolutely can do anything. And so just carry that in your heart and make sure you know that that is absolutely possible. And if you start to get those feelings of doubt, then work on your self-belief, find a way, someone to speak to, a book to read, to help to build those back up again. So thank you for listening. I hope that's been useful for at least somebody. Apologies for the dog barking in the middle. So yeah, so there's a few little quotes around there, just that results happen over time, not overnight, and that consistency and hard work will be absolutely worth it. Set your ambitions and your dreams big and then work hard to get them. And as Walt Disney says, all our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. Will it be easy? No, I can't tell you that running your own business is always easy, but it's totally worth it. And I'm so happy personally to have gone down this route. And I never really want to go back to employment again. And I've met some incredible people who will be lifelong friends, who've supported me, who've been either part of the businesses that I've been part of, or that I've just met along the way through my journey, perhaps clients of mine that I've been lucky enough to meet. So do feel free to connect with me via the Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, look up my website or drop me a message. on email if you'd like to chat further. So thank you so much. I will stop sharing and have a great day, everyone. Bye.